So when I do those, you want to go to print or you want to see it again?
Okay, all right.
We'll make those corrections.
And then, so this is office control,
From Harvard to here.
Well, I think our community members are here, so we'll go ahead and start the meeting then.
Okay, I'll call to order at 6:37. Mr. Jerry Presterline,
Here.
Mr. Jay Chung,
Here.
Ms. Denise Jackman.
Here.
I myself am here. Mr. Nat Ornales.
Here.
Ms. Yvette Homo. Ms. Wendy Zong.
Yeah.
Mr. Alex Flores.
Here.
Mr. Aubrey Craig is here but joining us shortly. Ms. Rosanna Lacamo. Hello. And Mr. Marcos Rodriguez.
Right back here. Yeah, I did notice we should probably add Josefina to this, so she takes the minutes for our meetings.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did everybody get a chance to review the agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? All in favor, please say aye. Motion carries unanimously. Oh, I'm sorry, all those opposed say aye. Okay.
May I ask a question?
The document that's on the agenda.
Well, I'd like to approach this before the public comment, please. That's what I'd like to add to the agenda if it's possible.
We normally don't respond to public comments.
So this is not going to be addressed.
You bring that up in the comment section. Okay. Okay, at the time, this is our public comment section. Note remarks are limited to 3 minutes unless extended further or limited by vote of the committee. A maximum of 20 minutes unless extended by the committee is allocated for each subject discussed. Ordinarily, committee members will not respond to presentations and no action will be taken. However, the committee may give staff further direction after the presentation. We have one person requesting to speak, Mr. Roy Humphreys.
Okay, thank you, and I'll have to speak up a bit here because you people have no microphones available here for this meeting. So welcome to the new guys. Business number one, it is a big shout out to Wendy Jong for her torrid retort of the sham fake news annual report by Chairwoman Natalie Moreno. You can see it on the website. Business number two is the content demand, the continued demand for Denise Jackman to be dismissed from this committee and the district for cause. Note the handout which was given to all of you, and it was also sent to the superintendent, essentially accusing Harry Peterson of plagiarism, and notes my mystical powers, which is tragically false because if true, I would be on the school board and not Mr. Malcolm. Denise Jackman would not be on this committee, and all public district meetings would be video recorded and posted. This number three is a continued demand that Harry Peterson's 3/13/18 meeting comments be published on the district website as required by law, unedited. Business number four, you can now go to YouTube and just by typing Rowland Unified School District, view all board, CBOC, and personnel commission meetings, to include the Brown Act, paid for by the district 2 years ago. I don't know if this young lady was the one that gave this situation. Business number five is a continued failure to demand that the district provide you with microphones and audio recording as per the district board and personnel commission is a disservice to the constituents of this district. Business number six is you must go to the YouTube site and see William Harrison and his 3 minutes of fame in the 9/13 board meeting. It was a virtual tsunami. Business number seven, Oswalt will be the albatross. We can't have a promised 2-story classroom building with no toilet, by the way, thank you, but we have $50 million fall from the sky. How nice that is. The willful failings of the district to adhere to its core values and transparency is a reflection of its character. And a quote, "For nothing is hidden except to be revealed, nor has anything been secret, but that it would come to light." That's Mark 4:22. And thank you very much. And for that situation on posting of the thing on the website, that's 15288.
Did everyone get a chance to look over at the minutes from our last meeting in June? Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll motion.
All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. At this time, Alex, can you please bring up the construction manager to give us an update on?
Sure. We have Mr. Russ Hall that will be making a brief presentation on the status as the committee has requested at each of our meetings to have the update on the Rowland High School project. Thank you, Russ.
One drive here is split up around. I have one here. Is it already loaded over here?
No, that was mine.
Just take it out.
Maybe they change the bulbs in this one. It'll be yellow.
Okay, like Alex said, let me give you a brief update on the status of the Rowland High School revitalization project. This slide basically just indicates the campus and the scope of work which is taking place. The shaded area is the area of the campus that includes the scope of construction for the project. This slide is a brief recap of the phase 1 work that was completed. In phase 1, we constructed a new 2-story, 22 classroom building. We had make-ready site work to construct new access roads in the playfield area and set up construction material and laydown areas. We had demo portable buildings, P11 and P12. We converted portable buildings P1 through 6 into temporary administration facilities. We converted some existing classrooms in the C building into a new temporary library computer lab. We relocated portable P27 and converted it into a temporary low voltage hub. And then we remodeled 4 in-building classrooms to accommodate computer animation classrooms and provide a temporary band classroom. And we relocated 2 temporary kitchen portable buildings and storage beds from the Dallas High School to the Rowland High School. So that wrapped up phase 1, which was complete summer of 2017. And then we moved into, well, this is a picture outside of the after building that was completed. And then moving into a phase 2 recap update. So with demolition of existing administration, library, band, cafeteria, and portables, P7 through 10. We set up a new construction for a laydown yard, which was in the main parking lot. We set up a hideout portable building on the back basketball, temporary hideout meeting area. There was construction on a new administration library and theater kitchen, which is now underway. Repairs were made to the exterior of the Jar culinary building. They were completed, and that building has been turned over to the district for use at the start of the school year. Completion and turnover of the ASD building has taken place. And construction in the courtyard has taken place. Everything's been turned over to the district for foot traffic and access. There are some items that are still outstanding. The exterior lighting, irrigation, planting in the area have not been installed yet. It will be shortly. And I have a couple of slides here that kind of show where we're at as far as progress goes. This is a picture of the admin building, the east elevation. That's the elevator tower right there. And that would be the student lobby to the right of the elevator tower. This is the building on the left, of course. This is the west elevation of the library administration building. This would be the elevation that faces Otterby. This is a picture taken from underneath the main lobby, looking towards the east of the theater kitchen building. That's the yard of the theater kitchen building. This is also a photograph of the yard room with the theater in the background there. So this would be the northwest corner, I guess. This is a picture that doesn't give real good perspective, but this is looking down at the theater seating area. It's a 615 seat theater seating area. This is the courtyard that I spoke about a little bit earlier, and that is the ASB building, which consists of a general store on the right and a classroom building on the left. offices in the back and the restroom on the backside. The light standards were installed this morning, but the courtyard lights won't operate until the power is delivered to the A building, because that's the source of power for the light. And then in phase 3, upcoming work, phase 3 is going to take place next summer. And during that phase, we're going to reconfigure the trail laydown yard and main parking lot. We're going to demo the portable buildings P1 through P6 and P13 through 22. I think I've mentioned it in some of the past presentations that without we won't have any portable buildings left on the site. We'll be constructing a new special ed education building, which will actually begin before the summertime. That should happen shortly after the summer break, actually. And we will be constructing a new main parking lot next summer. Of course, that has to take place during the summer, whether it's vehicle traffic. We'll be installing new concrete and asphalt at the exterior basketball and volleyball areas. We've had a material laydown yard before, and we're demoing portables P13 through 26. And we'll be removing the temporary kitchen portable and pour concrete in place of its current location. And we will remove the asphalt that's out in the play field that was used as a contractor laydown yard. It currently has a tent fence set up around it. And we'll make all the rest of the necessary site repairs, and the contractor will demobilize from the site. And that's it for the presentation. Typically, we folks like to ask some questions or try to answer any questions you may have.
Phase 3 is the same type of build, iron build, like phase 2, the building?
Oh, yeah. Structural steel infrastructure.
I was thinking it was a stick build, but no, it's regular build.
Yeah, it goes over right now where P1 through P6 is, which is being used as a temporary admin facility. Once the administration staff is able to move from that facility into the new admin building, we'll start the demolition of that, and hopefully get started on that building shortly thereafter.
Most of those portables also, we own those portables. So working with a facility master plan right now, which is we completed sometime at the end of October, early November. We'll know if some of these portables are needed, required at any of our district, our school sites, so that we can go ahead and place them there so we can utilize them. Especially we've been in great commitment with our school board and to provide the arts for our students. And all of our schools have a music program that they come once a week. So we want to have a designated place to use some of those portables. So we want to repurpose some of those. Of course, some that are early in their life that still have some more life expectancy. So that's what we're working with Russ and with Mark was with also.
Phase 3 is the final phase.
Yes. So the project is scheduled to end up in September of 2019. And that's when the theater building should become complete. The parking lot will go in, and the special ed building will be complete. We'll finish up most of the site work then. We'll be demobilizing by September, October.
How will the construction side of the new special ed building impact use of the field?
Of the field?
The football fields and the running track?
Shouldn't be the impact on it. The material laydown yard is drawn up to be in front of it, so it's going to come out into the parking lot area. The parking lot configuration changes a little bit. Right now, the material laydown yard is kind of runs east and west. That's going to be shortened up a little bit from the west. It's going to take a little L turn, so it will occupy the front of the student special ed building, excuse me. So we'll be able to access that area, keep the same square footage for the material laydown yard, but it shouldn't affect the stadium anymore.
The kids will still be able to get around it
Oh,
to get into
absolutely.
the track.
Of course.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Yeah, Audrey.
Or I'll do it,
Is
sorry.
that next one?
No.
I think it's the Brown Act?
It is Brown Act.
We have Serena.
Hi.
She's out there?
No, I just wanted to.
This Serene, I'm gonna have you pronounce your last name for everybody.
So Abrahamian or Abrahamian, it's up to you.
I always say Abraham, so.
Abrahamian, yeah.
And she's a familiar face for some of you here. She did the Brown Act training a couple of years ago.
Well, it was actually, I have it here. It's the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee overview of what the committee's responsibility.
Yes,
role and
and you
responsibility.
incorporated some of that in.
Yeah, we touched on the Brown Act, but didn't go too in depth. Today, we'll do a little more of that.
And since it was requested from the chair for the CBOC that we have new members, that we have a training for the Brown Act. So we asked her to come and to have a interactive, that means you guys get to ask questions throughout the process of the Brown Act. She provided an overview. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone, and thanks for that introduction, Alex. I'm with Oswalt Academy in Henderson. So just in terms of a general overview, what we call the Rowland and Brown Act is codified in Government Code sections 54950 to 54963. And we'll get more into the purpose behind the Brown Act, but really it's to ensure that legislative bodies and deliberative processes of legislative bodies, discussion, debate, and the acquisition of information must be open and available to the public for scrutiny, and that all meetings of a legislative body shall be open and public so that all persons shall be permitted to attend any meeting of a legislative body. And the important terms here, and what we'll get into a little bit more as we move on in the presentation, is the term meeting, and then also the term legislative body, which of course the CBOC is considered a legislative body, but I do get that question, whether they are or not, they are. And as a result, they're subject to the Brown Act. Pursuant to Government Code 54950, it is the intent of the law that their actions be taken only and that their deliberations be conducted openly. So you see this all throughout the Brown Act, this requirement of openness. And if we move on to the next slide, which is on page 3, this takes you into some of the purposes behind the Brown Act to ensure that the governing bodies conduct the people's business again in an open and transparent fashion, to keep the public informed, and to provide a procedural framework for local legislators to meet, debate, act, and listen collectively to their constituents. And so we'll get into a little bit more of that procedural framework, like for example, that the agendas have to be posted at least 72 hours before a meeting so that the public has access to them, that sort of thing. And really, I just want to emphasize that here the goal is that to have the public participate in a robust debate and come to these legislative gatherings and meetings and be able to express and participate in these meetings as well. So, as I said, we get into what is considered a legislative body. A legislative body includes governing boards of local agencies and their committees and commissions. In this instant, this committee was appointed, and there's actually a resolution that was approved by the board that formed this committee, which is the CBOC committee. It's a standing committee that has continuing subject matter jurisdiction. So what is the jurisdiction or the area of jurisdiction of the CBOC? To oversee expenditures of Measure R. That's very broad. Of course, there's specific roles and responsibilities that the committee has within that general framework, but that is the overall subject matter jurisdiction. And you'll see or fixed meeting schedules for board members, and that's why, because you get a lot of new board members being sworn in, and they want to make sure that board members are familiar and understand the Brown Act. So what does a meeting mean, or what constitutes a meeting? A meeting means any congregation of a majority of members of a legislative body at the same time and location, and this also includes teleconferencing, to hear, discuss, deliberate, or take action on any item that is within, again, the subject matter jurisdiction of the legislative body. And on this point, I wanted to say really quickly, in your case, your bylaws establish what would be considered here where we say a majority of the members. Your bylaws say and follow that requirement that you need a majority in order to have a quorum at a meeting. Some CBOCs or other committees will maybe have not just like the majority, they'll expand that to, okay, 5 of the 7 members have to be present in order for there to be a quorum. And you can do that based on what the committee wants to see in their bylaws, but of course it has to be at least a majority. The next area I'm going to get into is, of course, we're going to continue talking about meetings, but what can be perceived as meetings outside of like a forum like this, and things that the committee members should be careful of, and potential pitfalls when dealing with communications, telephone, email, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or communications through an intermediary, and what can be perceived as a meeting that should be, let's say, be conducted in an open forum, but is being conducted using technology, and maybe it's not always on everybody's mind as to what all these rules are. But we want to kind of go through that so that everybody's aware of what could be perceived as a meeting. So the first thing is, in order for this to be considered a meeting under the Brown Act, you've got to be having substantive discussions on a topic, again, within the subject matter of the committee. Communications limited to providing information, such as the superintendent's weekly report, or procedural or administrative matters, such as scheduling meetings, determining agenda, and time allotted to each of them. Those are more, I would say, procedural, or you can think of them as operational for the committee, not necessarily substantive. So you want to think about that when doing the analysis of, would this be considered a meeting? And this is a nice little handy, it's what we call a test in trying to determine whether or not a gathering of the committee is considered a meeting. If discussion can potentially contribute to developing a collective concurrence, so we're going to see this term a few more times through the rest of the presentation, it is likely to constitute a meeting for Brown Act purposes. And another important tidbit here is, even if a committee member does not participate in a discussion, is just listening, that could also contribute to developing a collective concurrence. But all of this requires, of course, a majority of the members being participants in this type of meeting. Common scenarios that are likely meetings, and again, all subject to having a majority participating, is group texts, where you have text messages in which a majority of the board or committee is copied. The hub of a wheel, where you have consecutive conversations through one intermediary to poll the committee. A daisy chain, where you've got consecutive conversations from one person to another to poll the committee. But again, where that term I referred to earlier, the collective concurrence is being reached. That's very important. You've got to have that kind of in the back of your head as we move through these. And internet blogs, where, for example, committee members are expressing opinions, but you've got a majority of the committee expressing an opinion on a certain topic that's within their jurisdiction, and it's viewed as a path to a concurrence. So please keep in mind, in these different scenarios, that you could potentially be participating in a meeting without maybe it seeming that way to you as a committee member. Common scenarios that are likely not meetings. And so this takes you to the code section, which is really helpful. And if you don't have it, we can provide that for the committee members. But if it's something that you want to read, provide that a majority of the members do not discuss among themselves, other than as part of a scheduled program, business of a specific nature that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the legislative body. So the categories I'm going to go through next are generally not considered meetings for that reason. So where you don't have a quorum, it's just individual contacts or conversations between the members of the legislative body. Where you have general meetings, the attendance of a majority of the members of the legislative body, like this committee, at a conference or similar gathering open to the public that involves a discussion of issues of general interest to the public or to public agencies represented by the legislative body, but is not necessarily within the subject matter, or is not covering subjects that are under this committee's jurisdiction. Community meetings, the attendance of a majority of the members of the CBOC at an open and publicized meeting, where, let's say, the community is expressing their concerns on a specific topic. Public entity meetings, the attendance of a majority of the members of a legislative body at an open and noticed meeting of another local agency. Parties, you can definitely attend parties, even if there's a majority of you attending them, as long as it remains purely social or ceremonial. And district meetings, the attendance of a majority of the members of the legislative body at an open and noticed meeting of a standing committee. And again, provided that the members of the CBOC are not members of the standing committee and only attend as observers. So that takes us through the meeting section. I don't know if you have specific questions about that. And now we're going to get more into like kind of the operational side, like the conduct during meetings. But as far as like what constitutes a meeting, I don't know if you have some questions about that I can address before moving into this next section. I know it's a little bit like you kind of have to like pull it all together, but hopefully the examples I'm giving kind of explain it in a way that makes sense.
There's no clarifying questions before she moves forward?
Okay, great. So as far as conducting meetings, we covered what this particular CBOC, as far as the bylaws are concerned, have laid out as far as when meetings will take place. By vote of the committee, you can lay out that schedule. The meeting place must be within district boundaries. Meeting place must be accessible to the public, accessible to disabled, and actually on the agenda, I know that Rowland Unify is actually very good about posting this on every agenda. There's a little note about assistance for the disabled. And actually, not every district does that. Kudos to you guys. Teleconferencing must be from publicly accessible locations. So for example, if a committee member wanted to teleconference into a meeting, you need to have at least a quorum within district boundaries in order to do that. And then the location from where that teleconferencing is going to occur needs to be a public location, also needs to be, the public needs to be notified of that. Any person attending may videotape unless it becomes disruptive. This takes you through generally what the agenda contains. I mean, this is a little more information that the legislative body must post an agenda containing date, time, and location of the meeting, and a brief general description of each item of business. No action or discussion shall be undertaken on any item that does not appear on the agenda, except for limited circumstances, and those I'm going to address on the next page. So again, just going through that agendas are posted at least 72 hours before a regular meeting and 24 hours before for a special meeting. But the 72-hour rule, I mean, that's the minimum. Of course, some school districts post it a week in advance or when it's ready. Sufficient detail to allow public to determine whether to participate. Again, that brief general description that we talked about before. And then the exceptions to standard agenda requirements. If you have an emergency item that's not on the agenda, you can vote by majority vote to have it included. If there's a need to take immediate action that arose after the agenda is posted, then you need a 2/3 vote for that. And if the committee present is, 2/3 vote of the entire committee. If you have less than the entire committee there, then it's a 2/3 vote of the members who are present. And then you can briefly, as a committee, respond to questions and ask for clarification, and make brief announcements or brief report of activity. As to the responding to questions or asking for clarification, that typically arises when you're dealing with members of the public who are exercising their right to their public comments or public testimony. Violations of the Brown Act, and we're doing this so that nobody ever has to deal with these issues, but misdemeanor liability exists if there's a quote-unquote intent to deprive the public, and I just wanted to give a little more context to that. It's the intent to deprive the public of information members know or have reason to know the public is entitled to, as being under this committee's jurisdiction or subject matter jurisdiction. The public, and actually also the DA, obviously can sue to stop violations of the Brown Act. And in certain cases, and this obviously falls more within like school board, closed sessions can be taped if that's what, like for example, a court requires, and then those taped closed sessions will be kept confidential. It's called like an in-camera process where that information is kept confidential for a certain amount of time until the potential violation is assessed. The agency must be given an opportunity to cure, and that's one thing I want to kind of talk about a little bit here, is that there is an opportunity to cure violations of the Brown Act. So for example, if you're going through like an approval process and it's not done from A to Z, the committee can come back and cure that potential lack of, whether it was there wasn't a vote of this, for example, the CBOC or something along those lines. And so those types of opportunity to cure those. If it's determined that there is a violation of the Brown Act, then the action that was taken that's in violation is then nullified, the action of that particular committee or board or legislative body. And again, this is kind of along the same lines. The only thing I want to emphasize here is this particular code section, 54960A, covers also that the district attorney or any interested person may commence an action to prevent violations or threaten violations for past actions of the legislative body as well. But there is a time limit on how far back they can go. I believe it's approximately 9 months. So that's essentially like a statute of limitations on the ability of somebody to go back in time and bring up what they perceive to be violations. And the court may award court costs and reasonable attorney's fees to the plaintiff in the action if a determination was made that there was a Brown Act violation. And that's presentation.
I have some questions.
Sure.
The public comment, is it allowed, does it pertain only to the items on the agenda, or is it allowed to be used for advertisement or just personal speech?
It's not limited to what's on the agenda.
Okay.
It can be items that are on the agenda or not on the agenda.
Okay, so it can be used as advertisement?
I'd have to look into that specifically, but generally, I mean, it can be, I'm gonna say this, but it can be anything pretty much, but specifically as to advertising, I'd have to look into that.
I'm sorry, she didn't get the question, so she can write down her notes. What was the question?
I was asking if public comment could be limited to just the agenda, or if it can be
Okay.
advertisement or whatever their personal page is.
What would constitute disruption in filming?
That would be on a case-by-case basis. I think that as far as school districts are concerned, and especially in meetings like this, what I've seen is that the school district can lay out some ground rules for, for example, where they want the camera placed, how close they want the camera to the individuals that are being filmed, that sort of thing. And if those aren't followed, or if the person's being aggressive with the camera or putting it in people's faces, that sort of behavior, then I would say that probably crosses a line. But again, it's very fact specific depending on what's occurring, what the school district or whatever whatever agency we're talking about, what they've laid out as kind of ground rules for the person who's filming.
One more question. I'm sorry, somebody else, go ahead. The last question I had was, how much before the meeting and how much after the meeting can you take recorded?
Again, I think that's more on a case-by-case basis. I mean, the meetings themselves can be recorded, so that we know. But as far as of course, it's going to take folks a little bit of time to set up. in terms of like from when, like for example, today, the meeting started at 6:37, so is your question like, could
They
they
start at like 6:15 or 6:20 and start recording at that time any personal conversations that are going on in the room.
It's not supposed to be for personal, you're not allowed to record people's conversations. That's not allowed by law, but what's being recorded is this committee's. So I would say that it should be close in time to when the meeting is beginning, and it should end close in time to when the meeting ends.
And our interpretation actually has been, once the meeting is called to order, that's when you can start recording. When the meeting is called, that's when you can stop recording. Not before, not after.
So you mentioned the group text is considered meeting.
Well, okay, so it can be, it depends, like, remember we talked about two things. We talked about the operational side of things. So for example, if you send a group text to the group saying, is our next meeting on Thursday? That is likely not a meeting, because that's more of a kind of operational procedural kind of question. But if you're covering a topic that's under this committee's jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction, and you reach a concurrence on it, and it's more substantive, it's not just, you know, how many pieces of paper should we bring to the next meeting, that sort of thing, then that can be considered a meeting. But you still need a majority of the members to be participating in that group text.
So in order to avoid the other one, it's just send it by email.
Well, no, same thing with email.
Well, it would be
Yeah.
the same by email. It's just really important to think about a lot of things, like, for example, you may have communications over email where, like, for example, documents are being provided or information is being provided to the committee that is then also going to be presented at the meeting, right? Sometimes with other committees that I help out with, like the agendas and whatever else gets sent in advance to the committee members. So you can have that type of communication, but if it's a question of reaching an agreement on something that's within the committee's jurisdiction that really should be addressed at a committee meeting and voted on, or there should be a concurrence on, and that concurrence is reached during that electronic communication, then yes, that's considered a meeting.
So let me try to give an example here, I think, to help out. So one of our agenda items today is the calendar. And calendars are so difficult, aren't they, trying to get dates. So Josephina can send out an email out saying, he provides some calendar dates that may work, so she can compile it and bring it back to the meeting and discuss it. Or to look at it and see which ones are the dates that work, and then we can bring a presentation. And then it's voted upon here at the meeting. Now, that wouldn't be a violation. The violation would be is Josephina sends something out and you guys all agree on the meeting dates
By email.
by email. Is that the concurrent, is that an example? I mean, it's a...
It is, I mean, I think meeting dates, it's a little more
Even
on the
that's-
procedural
yeah.
side, but yes.
Try to use something that's on the agenda today. So
That's a
try-
good example, that's
Something emergency, you have to, you don't have meeting, emergency.
Well, there's a Brown Act statute on emergencies. Do you want to, I think you...
right, yeah, I think.
Emergencies are natural disasters.
Well, or if there's an emergency item that you didn't have notice of when the agenda was prepared, or it comes up during the meeting, something happens. I want to see if I can give an example. Do you have an example, Alex, of an emergency?
I can think more of an emergency at the school board.
Yeah, I feel like
Say
at
there
the
was
school board level.
this is a terrible example, say there was a unforeseen illness, death, or there was something that was incapacitated so that you had to call upon to make some decisions, that can maybe be qualifying for
An emergency.
an emergency.
So that was exemption. So there will be exemption. You don't need to follow. We can go by emergency something, emergency something that has to go by,
Oh, no, that's an emergency to conduct a meeting.
So it's an emergency to add an item to an agenda that has not been
I
received.
think the only thing that could affect this would be the collapse of the dollar.
Well, no, I think the
Or
question.
collapse of the building.
Let me try to. I think the question Wendy's asking is, she was asking the question about to vote on.
Right.
And I think you covered that in your presentation, that you still have to have a majority of people
Yes.
present at a public venue like this. And electronically, you could actually, or telephonically, you could join it, and that would have to be an open public place also.
And the public would have to know in advance that we were
So-
doing it telephonically, and the public place where you're doing it from, where you're
And
calling it.
and that you posted, and a matter of fact, I think at one time, I was involved with one of the meetings that we actually, a board member was calling from home, and then we said you had to open the front door. That you have to make yourself available to be able to, if someone was to walk in. So, I'm not saying anything in particular for anyone that's here, okay? I'm not giving anything like that, but it is, it's a public meeting, so you have to have access.
Does that answer your question?
Well, yeah,
But you're never gonna vote electronically.
I know.
And if there's people participating by telephone, you have to do the voting by roll call. So that's another rule.
Any other questions?
You know, just like every presentation I go to, I always think of the best questions when I get into the car and I'm driving home. So I would like to offer that if you have any questions individually, you can send them to Josefina, and then we'll get the answers back to you. We'll ask Serena if she can answer, give some guidance on some of these questions, and either we can give it back to you and then also present it to you at the next meeting, so any questions that come up. So.
And of course, you have the presentation, but if there are any specific code sections you want to see or read or review, I'm more than happy to provide those as well.
If not, she has a long drive home, so I'm going to say thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I hope that was helpful.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate the time and energy for this.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Our next on our agenda is receiving the physical report for the Rowland High School project.
Thank you for allowing Aubrey, our Director of Fiscal, to make a brief presentation on the goals of the project. With that, I'll let you- Does everyone have the information in front of them?
One page here.
If it's not, I have few more copies.
This is one.
Yeah, it's just a pie chart. Oh,
Members, to the audience, tonight I will be presenting to you the Rowland High School New Edition budget as of August 31st, the ending balance as of August 31st, and activity as of August 31st, 2018. As you see in the first summary status, you see that there was a total budget for this project of $55 million. 51.9 million was committed, of that 51.9 million was spent at the end of August 31st, 2018, $40,294,278. Also, of that, there is a contingency of $1.6 million, which represents 2.9% of the total budget. The committed status represents 94.4% of the budget, which is the $51.9 million. Again, the total expenditures spent as at the end of August 31st was $30,294,278, and that represents 55.1% of the budget. So we still have roughly, what, 44.9% left to spend. Are there any questions? Sure.
A quick explanation of district held retention.
Okay. Well, contingencies in a sense is incidental that we set aside just in case something popped up, and also before we finalize and make the final payment, when the project is basically closed. When we come and say the project is closed, then we make sure that there is a checklist to make sure everything is checked off before we give them the final payment and so on. So that's basically what it is.
So this also includes to make sure all the central contract. Is that this line?
Which one?
Which one are you talking about?
Held retentions.
Well, that's basically, like I said again before, basically, it's before we check off all the things. We're gonna make sure everything's accounted for before we give any final last.
So when you pay for work that's being done, you pay by percentage of the work that's being completed. And then at the end of it, you actually still hold a percentage of the final payment for the contractor until it's been signed off as a completed project. Like it's been, and he said he signs it off and it's all completely signed up. Then you give the retention. Because if there's any warranty, anything that's not done with the punch list that's not completed, at a certain point, we can actually hire a different company to go ahead and finish the punch list, but they're not doing it at the time that we want them to do it. And then through that contingency, that holdback, we can use that money to pay the outside company. I would correct me if I'm wrong, Marcos, I know you've been involved with that.
Yeah, it's 5% of every pay app submitted. So when a pay app for the month is submitted, whatever the end amount is, the district holds back 5% in an escrow account. And it's, like Alex said, to cover any items that are not completed in a timely way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of in public construction. There are some safeguards that are put into place to protect public funds, and this is one of them. It's extra work for us to manage that, and we actually can be held penalized if we don't release them at a certain time also after they complete their work too. So it works both ways.
And the other way, if they don't finish it within a timely manner, you can take them for LDs if it damages.
Yeah, if it's built into the contract.
Yeah.
So the contingency amount eventually will use them all, right?
Not necessarily. No, the contingency amount is just an earmarked amount that if needed, as you're gonna.
Like a cushion, right?
Well, I don't know, but there's sometimes when you have construction, you open up a wall and there's things that are gonna be there that, the unforeseen. So you wanna make sure you have some sort of, some wiggle room. There was a lot of, when this project was bidded out and when it was bidded out, there was a lot of underground work that needed to be done to connect the campus together. So there was some costs that for sure that were going to take place, and that's why there was some contingencies put into place for that. But it was just unknown. The last time I spoke to Russ, I walked the campus, I think a week or two ago. I think only 2% has been used.
About 2%.
About 2% has been used of the $1.6 million, which is I think less than a.
Overall, less than 1%.
Less than it's like 0.5% of the whole total amount. So it's actually, where's the wood at? Knock on wood. You know, it's good.
So, total budget is 55 million, but the commitment is 51 something.
Right.
That means, what's the rest?
That's the 3.1, just the balance. The committed amount, based on the project, it was projected to be 55 million. There's 51.9 committed, I mean, there's actual PO and stuff, but that particular work to be done. based on the work that's already been done, we paid $33.2 million. So we waited to see, again, like you said, you have a little bit of the contingency and some based on what the project was. So it may come in, again, under the 55 million, or, you know, there's some other foreseen stuff we do, which we doubt it.
It's a great question. So let me try to originally when this project was thought of years ago, it was $55 million. Based upon when we went out to bid, it came in lower, so it's $52 million. So there's $52 million that's approximately $52 million is committed for this project. So there really is $3 million that's still bond money that we can apply somewhere else. So sometimes people think money just falls from the sky. It doesn't. It's different projects that are not being used. So like, for example, there's other projects that we have in the bond that we're increasing. Like, for example, Oswalt, it's increasing from 30 million, that was before, to 50 million. So there's 3 million right there that will help to add the next 20 million to make up for it. It's not that money just, I wish we had the problem that money just fell from the sky, but that's not the case. So the 55 million that was here, there's 3 million that's here that's being applied to Oswalt.
Alex, it's really important that everyone realize that the 55 million is total budget for the project. That's construction, soft cost, administrative cost, and all the fees that we pay to different government agencies.
And at this point, it's committed is 51 million,
Right.
51.9.
Right.
So there's really $3 million that most likely will not be used.
Hopefully, yes.
Well, I think that you bring a great point. It's what's committed is 51. That's with the contingency. So there's a good chance that we're banking that's going to be at 51.
Our volume,
No, the bond is 100 and,
yeah.
yeah, of that bond, 55 million was allocated for that project.
And allocations can change depending on the.
Oh, absolutely. Why would we not just throw the money away? You know, of course, we're not going to do that. We just move it to where we're gonna need it. You know, it's money that's needed somewhere else. So, yeah.
To improve the district for the students.
Our role used by the students and staff will use it, if not at one school, at a different school. You know, for example, look at the Oswalt project. Only 30 was committed to when really it's 50 minutes needed, so that's what we're using.
So Oswalt is getting 50 million. I mean, it's not as an elaborate production. I'm just blown away at the fact that we're spending almost, or allocate 55 million for the structures that at Rowland High School. I mean, there are huge, huge structures. And almost the same amount is allocated to Oswalt. It's like, you don't see that same huge structures.
So if you're
I'm
saying,
not sure.
you don't see the Q structure at Oswalt or
At Oswalt.
So let's think of,
I don't know what's been done, maybe because I'm new here, so I don't know what's been done at
The only
Oswalt.
one time that I visited Oswalt that I was there, it looked like they just dropped a lot of stuff. It looked like they just dropped a lot of buildings, which tells me that they don't have the infrastructure. They don't, you know, what I mean by infrastructure, I mean all the underground trenching, everything to interconnect everything. Nothing there seems permanent, and to me, that whole site looks like a scraping redo. That's just my opinion.
so we call
So I can understand you putting in quite a bit of money around
So
anything
what
that's
you're
permanent
saying
structure
is
there.
more under, we can't see.
No, it's more, well, there's not, the high school already had some infrastructure, yeah, they're changing, you know, not only that, they're doing the parking and all that other good stuff, and you could tell when they did the trenching on the first phase, but that, even though that's a little school, it really it doesn't have, first of all, it doesn't have the space, second, it doesn't have the infrastructure, and third, I don't know, I mean, they just dropped bungalows. It's
it's actually a great point because it's basically, it's a school of portables. And that's why the project, the Oswalt project is called the Rebuild Project, because we're basically rebuilding a school. And so that project there, here's another thing to think about. The most inexpensive construction there is called big box construction, where they basically pour concrete on the floor and then they tilt it up. They're called tilt-ups. They're massive buildings, massive buildings, and they look grand, but they're very inexpensive to build because it's all concrete. So now compare that to the big theater, the big areas at Rowland High School. Now look at a whole new school of 40 classrooms instead of 22 classrooms, or at an administration building, NPR room, a kitchen, several restrooms, a lot of restrooms. So there's a lot of work that's being done there, and that's the reason why it costs about $65.
Which most of the low voltage would be for fire life and safety issues.
Yeah. And you know what we hope? We hope we don't have to spend that money. We hope when we go out to bid, we don't have to. But the other thing too is the Rowland project, even though it's underway right now, it's getting closer to completion. It was bid out what, 3 years ago.
That's what I was gonna
So construction costs are escalating about a 5%. It varies. There's concerns. I think the question, I'm assuming the questions you had earlier today was basically the tariffs, thinking if it was a stick construction compared to steel construction, because that's something we have to analyze too. If those tariffs came in at 25% for steel, so those are outside factors and things that we have to analyze and compare. But you know, come tomorrow to our facility presentation. We can tell you all the detail of the Oswalt project, and we have some plans, and you can kind of see there's a lot of work and a lot of detailed work to it, and it'd be great if we did it, because if we did it, then we could apply the money somewhere else. Again, it's not going to fall from the sky. It's going to be applied to somewhere else.
Beth, he's gonna start giving us updates on Oswalt, we'll do it later in our meetings for the year, the board gets to see it. That's, yeah, well, he's saying that there's the facilities meeting tomorrow.
If you look at the price,
Yeah.
I'm spending $50 million and I'm getting a Mercedes and I'm looking at a VW. It just, to me, it just.
It's a GTI.
Okay.
Well, you know what,
Whatever.
there's about 85,000 square feet of construction at Oswalt.
Yeah,
And how much is it? How much is that, Roland?
about just under 60,000.
So there's actually more construction that is happening at Oswalt than at, and that helps to understand the scale of the magnitude of the work that's going to be happening too. And again, there's a lot of square foot at Rowland, and a lot of it is a really big pack of Performing Arts Center, which has its own expenses too because of all the engineers and all the audio consultants we hire to make sure we have pristine audio there. So it's a lot of square footage that is not actually as expensive as classrooms.
And Oswalt, you're replacing about 90% of the campus because you're only keeping the science building and the bathroom building. Everything else gets demoed and rebuilt. At Rowland, you were replacing about 55% of the square footage there.
But you know what? That's a great question, and we'd love to explore it more and make a presentation to show you that too. And so I appreciate the question. I really do.
Can I have a motion that we accepted the financial report?
A motion.
I second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Next is review and approve or modify the calendar dates.
Did you want me to talk about this?
Sure. I actually want to make sure everything's.
Again, I apologize. I wasn't at the last CBOC meeting. I was being a father at that time and taking my son to some colleges to take a look at. So there was some concerns came up with some of the dates, so in front of you are some new proposed dates. I do want to make a comment on one. On June 12th, it's only if needed. I don't want us to be in the same situation we were in this past year with the annual report, which is pretty much one of the things that you do as the CBOC. And last year, the May meeting didn't have a quorum, so we weren't able to have the report created here. I know the chair has talked about having a subcommittee to write the report, which is in our bylaws, which was an opportunity that we could have always done here. And I think she's going to take advantage of that. But I did want to put an additional day in June before the board meeting, just in case if life gets in the way, and if we don't have a quorum, we can still go ahead and have another meeting, so we could do that. That was just a thought that we really learned. So how do these dates look?
I like all the dates.
They're great. Anybody have conflicts?
Everyone's good? Aubrey and Marcos said all those dates do not work for them, so they won't be here with us next year, so thank you so much. I'm just kidding. They'll be here. So I guess you want to have a motion?
Yes, can I get a motion, please?
I'll second
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Okay, next up is any comments from staff or committee members?
If there's no comments from the committee, as public officials and representing the bond, I'm sure you get questions from the community members all the time. And I just want to make sure I dispel a false rumor that is out in the community, that the district has intentions to go out for a $2 million bond. That's erroneous, that's incorrect, that's wrong. I don't know.
200 million.
Did I say 2?
Yeah, you said 2.
I meant 200, sorry, I apologize. 2's here.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that if you're approached or if you're asked, there is no intent whatsoever to go up for a $2 million bond. 200, did I say 200? It's such a big number, it's hard for me to say it, I apologize. So a $200 million bond. So.
Probably uses the $750 million bond that they're asking for it outside.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I wanted, in case if you're approached or anything as community members, I just wanted to give you that information and keep you on, so you could please inform the community of the mistake that's being made or said out there that's incorrect. Okay? Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, meeting called adjourned at 7:47. Oh, sorry, I need a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned at 7:47.
She had it wrong.
Again,